Hey, Jacker again, back with another Chicago Marathon video update for weeks 9 through to 12. Fun fact, I thought I'd actually recorded this episode just over an hour ago, but my microphone wasn't being picked up, so back again recording. To summarize weeks 9 through to 12 in a few words would be fatigue, tired, and generally questioning why the heck I'm running all these marathons so often. Like my previous two videos on my Chicago Marathon training up on my channel, going to do a week-by-week walkthrough of the training and the sessions that I completed. I'll spend a little bit more time going through my quality sessions as well as my long runs because they actually changed quite a lot compared to my original training plan intentions, so keen to share my thoughts on how that panned out too. I'll also look between the camera as well as my screen where I'll share my Garmin Connect screen too so you can all see the breakdown. Starting off the Monday as always with 7k easy absorption run just to get the legs moving for the week ahead. Going into my first quality session for week 9 being my 3x3k at marathon pace. So go into my interval sections. Started and finished off my warm up and cool down for the session with a lap button press. So it would get me just under 3Ks to the running track that allowed me to be uninterrupted, not having to stop for any cars or traffic lights too. First 3x3k rep, managed to go 410, 408 and 408 per kilometer. Averaging pace of 4 minutes and 9 seconds for that rep. Always find myself a little too eager to go out a bit fast with my first rep, but managing over the course of training for 3 marathons now, starting to ease into it for myself because experience from New York Marathon last year and training for it would get to the 3rd or 4th rep after going super fast out on the first one, not being able to actually do the 3rd or the 4th rep properly. Second 3Ks going 358, which was quite quicker than I expected. 409, 412 for an average of 407 per kilometer. And then for the 3rd rep going 357, pretty fast again, 403 and 4 minutes per kilometer to average it out at around 4 minutes per kilometer for that one too. So sticking pretty close to the same paces for those 3k efforts, and glad to see that essentially I negative splitted all of those 3x3k efforts towards the end of the workout. Back at the gym on the Wednesday, followed by Thursday doing 8 kilometers, Friday 14 kilometers. So we get to week 9 being my long run for the week of 28 kilometers. Here decided to throw some efforts at marathon pace for it to see how my body was adapting to that increase in workload. So we started off here with 5 kilometers at an easy pace to get warmed up for the run. Then ended up doing 8 kilometers at marathon pace with a 1k float twice for the long run to bring up the 28Ks. For the first 8 kilometers, managed to do at an average pace of 4:45, so right under the sub 3 hours 30 pace. Was a little concerned with my heart rate average at 171. Not too bad, but considering I was literally hitting 13Ks with that kind of heart rate, was just interested to see in the following weeks how my heart rate would adapt to, because I understand with your long runs you're supposed to really run them easy, but I'm also in that boat where I kind of need to push myself into marathon efforts to see if my body is actually at that position to handle it. So I was surprised to see that it held it up pretty well, and going 4 minutes 43 per kilometer average pace for the second lot of 8 kilometers at marathon pace. Average heart rate kind of ticked up a bit more again to 175. So really pushing in, I'd say, towards that almost zone 4 kind of zone for me. But honestly, and being practically honest here, I haven't really measured my heart rate properly to know what exactly my zones are. So definitely something I might do post Chicago Marathon to see where I'm at this stage of training. Going into my final 4 kilometers? No. Final 5-ish kilometers at just an easy, comfortable pace to round off the 28Ks for week 9. In terms of nutrition for the run for 28Ks, had my Morton non-caffeinated at 45 minutes, which just did not want to sit down. Had to actually stop for a little bit to recollect myself before heading back off. Morton caffeinated gel at 90 minutes, which again wasn't the best, but managed to just get it down. And topped up with SIS electrolyte drinks in my soft flask as well for the electrolytes. We started off week 10 with another 7Ks, quite easy. Then after seeing my physio on the previous Friday there, decided I'd actually do a bit of a deload week. So dropped my 5x2Ks to 3x2Ks for the quality session here. Ended up using my Hoka Rocket X2s for this session just to just trying not to put as much stress as I'd need on my legs in particular as well. So the carbon plates, or the foam in the carbon shoes, being able to take some of that stress off. So going to the first sort of 4x2Ks. So I did this at threshold pace, 425 average pace for the first rep, at 427 and 423 for each of those kilometers. For the next one, going 418, a little faster, running 420 for the first one, and then 415, which felt pretty good for that. And then in the third one, going even faster again, doing 413. So keeping it quite consistent there for the final rep at 413 and then 414 per kilometer. Sorry if I sound really tired. I think I'm still recovering from yesterday's long run for week 12. Had gym on the Wednesday, nothing too different there. 8Ks on the Thursday. Dropped my 14Ks down to 10Ks for the Friday just to ease the load. But then, of course, me being me, decided to do 20Ks as my long run, thinking, oh, that's going to be good. Ended up doing it at under marathon pace, which is ridiculous. Honestly thought I would use this as a week to recover, but yeah, ended up smashing out. See, starting at 5 minutes 30, but then you work your way down and you're seeing like 444, 442 even before then getting back to 5 minutes per kilometer. Being only 22 kilometers for this one, felt I could get away with just having one raspberry lemonade goo gel for that run, which I took with no problems. Again, a bit pig-headed by me deciding to run the full 22Ks at marathon pace, because I do feel like this was one of the runs that caused me to feel so fatigued and tired in the following weeks for week 11 and 12. It just got to a point where my body was so sore and so tired. Week 10, getting back into a normal kind of mileage, started off at 7 kilometers. Tuesday, I decided to do 10Ks at, this had marathon pace, but it was threshold pace. It was also the first time that I used my New Balance SC Elite V4s, which I'll be using for Chicago. So I had quite a lot of fun with this one too. Started off with the warm up by lat button press and then the 10Ks at marathon pace, which was totally threshold pace. We look along 412s, 412s, 410s, 4s, 6 minutes. And this was where I think it was just after hitting the 9K mark, I had to stop and throw up because I was just running a bit too fast for my body to handle and also unfueled. I feel like me not eating anything before smashing out a workout like this was the contributing factor to needing to stop. Thoughts on the shoes though, amazing, felt comfortable and very stable. Not as aggressive as the Rocket X2s I found, but I'm hoping in the final 12 kilometers of the marathon itself for Chicago, feel like the V4s will be able to keep me running with the right running form as well as keeping my running economy and efficiency going pretty well there too. Gym on the Wednesday, and I feel like at the gym that particular week felt like I was at my limit in terms of strength for this block, deciding to keep the weight the same but drop the reps that I'm doing too, because what I was noticing in my 8Ks the following day, my legs were just not recovering quick enough. Going into that Thursday, 8 kilometers easy, 14Ks easy, before now really starting to get to those beefy numbers at 32 kilometers. This one I decided to actually run at an easy pace as well. And this was also after having a talk with my osteo the day prior, really just wanting to keep my body in shape before heading over there. And as we can see, started off at an average pace of 6:21 for the first kilometers. hitting around the 5s through to 6 averages as well, with some bathroom breaks in between. But again, we get to 21Ks and I'm starting to push under 5-minute kilometers for the following 10Ks essentially too. So another 10Ks at marathon effort, which felt pretty good. Heart rate was a bit better actually, seeing that it only really hit 174 as a maximum. Felt pretty good there. Like, I think this was that kind of long run where you're running at a slower pace, feeling pretty good. So deciding to actually bump it up and actually give it a go to see how the body handles it, and yeah, felt good. This run was also when I started to do Chicago specific nutrition. So started off with an SIS non-caffeinated gel at 45, SIS caffeinated gel at 90, and then another SIS non-caffeinated at 2 hours and 15 minutes, I believe. Also had an electrolyte tablet every hour of the run too, and I felt all of those went down fine and had a good experience in terms of my energy levels remaining good enough to push through. And then we get to week 12, which was literally just this week, running my long run just yesterday and still recovering from it, I feel like. Probably the week where I felt that confidence for running a marathon comeback. 7Ks on the Monday, deciding to do my 5x2K repeats in my V4s again, just to make sure that they're ready to go come Chicago, and was actually really surprised with how this one went too. So started off thinking I'd only do 4x2Ks, really did not want to be out there for 5, but hey, ended up doing the 5, and we'll go through some pretty juicy data actually. First 2Ks at 4:12 and then 4:10 for an average of 4:11 per kilometer. For the second one, going 4:05 and then 4:12 for an average of 4:09 per kilometer. Good to see that slowly drop gradually. For the third rep, 4:06 and then 4:09 for an average of 4:08. Kept that kind of average pace the same with a 4:07 and a 4:08 to average 4:08 for the fourth rep. Felt pretty good coming into the fifth rep and had a fair bit of energy left. So I thought, okay, look, you've got the carbon plated shoes that you're running Chicago in. Let's see how good they really are. Managing to do 3:52 and 3:49 for an average pace of 3 minutes 50 per kilometer. Also hit a new mile record as well during this rep. I was a little concerned with my V4s in the first run doing that 10K threshold / whatever you want to call it. Not feeling like they were aggressive enough too, but I feel like after completing the fifth rep and seeing how fast I could actually get up to with the V4s in my 5x2Ks, felt confident that these were a shoe that are going to ensure that I can run marathon effort for the entirety of it. Get back to gym on the Wednesday as per normal with a slightly decreased load to save the legs a little bit. 8Ks on the Thursday, 14 on the Friday, and then as we can see here, the Saturday, which was yesterday here, being 35 kilometers. I think a real green flag for me this time was seeing the average pace at 5:31 kilometers, really just taking yesterday easy and having fun with it too. Completely different track, because I'd usually, we see on my mouse here, would run towards Point Cook, which is kind of around here that I run to usually. Ended up actually going towards Maribyrnong, which is here as well. So a completely different way that I'm used to. Having run that before is good, but for the 35Ks, I knew that if I ran the same kind of route towards Point Cook, would almost mentally know where each kilometer would end up being, and getting a bit too in my head, I feel like, as well. With my average paces, really good seeing that, it was high 5s, low 6s with some toilet breaks in between. Of course, really didn't want to push myself. And an average heart rate, I always get confused with so 154, which was really good to see that, this was an easy aerobic run for the entirety of it. It was freezing cold on this run too, and luckily I got out when I did, because it started hailing about 4 or 5 times on this day yesterday. Nutrition wise, I also made the decision to actually completely stop and consume it before heading back out for the run, which explains the 6:52s and the 6:15s during the run. And I actually was having so much fun that I decided to do some mid-run reviews of the nutrition that I took. So let's take a look at that. First gel, just hiding to take them with a break, but actually not running. I always find the first one doesn't sit well in my stomach, so letting myself take the breather and then go back out there for 35 seconds. Just under 28 to go. Let's get this one done. Second gel, SAS, fruit salad flavour, overlooking harbour of somewhere in Williamstown, I guess. Yeah. So far, so good. And this is going down a treat. Now onto the cliff chews. About. Oh, okay. Just under 19 k's in. So let's see how these go. Sorry, it's probably windy. Final gel. Trying to take as much of the calf as I can. Not bad. Getting tired. So that's my video for this week, friends, on my weeks 9 through to 12 training for the Chicago Marathon. Crazy to think that this will probably be my last in-depth one before I get over to the US and prepare to run my second world major now. I hope that you found the insight into my quality sessions and my long runs useful. As I mentioned, they changed slightly in terms of the intensity and effort levels that I was looking for. Essentially just wanting to make sure I was resting and recovering enough to actually get out there to complete the runs, because I noticed my legs were really starting to feel it and borderline at risk of getting injured, I was pretty sure. In terms of week 13, 14 and 15, 16 being marathon week, not too sure I will get another video out like this too. But I think going forward, the videos you'll see on the channel will likely be centered around Chicago, and I guess even preparing for the race itself too. So if you want to see kind of like a race strategy video going into Chicago, please let me know. I'm more than happy to film one of those as I start to really factor and plan how I'm going to approach this marathon to being quite a large scale event as one of the majors. Hope you are doing well over on your side of the screen, and thank you again for tuning in to watch me rant and ramble on about all of the things that are marathon training. If you are training for a particular event, hope it all is going well for you, and if you're just getting out there for a run too, then I'm wishing you all the best with your running going forward. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.